Well, the South African National Editors Forum, Media Monitoring Africa, SOS Support Public Broadcasting Coalition, and the Campaign for Freedom of Expression have expressed their concern over the recent revelations in the city press regarding the state security agency's attempt to yet again vet SABC's head of news, Moshoeshoe Monare. Now, they say this move by the SSA undermines the fundamental principles of media and editorial independence and the freedom of the press. Now, let's discuss this further. We are now joined by Campaign for Free Expressions, Professor Anton Harber. Prof, thank you so much for your time. Well, you've heard now from the presidency, saying that the SABC's Group Executive of News and Current Affairs, Moshoeshoe Monare, is not being targeted ahead of the national elections. Let's then get your take on what the presidency is saying and fundamentally what we should be making of this SSA wanting then to revet Mr. Monare.
Thank you very much. This is an important issue and I'm grateful for the chance to address it. I will point out one thing. He said Mr. Monare is not a reporter, he's an executive. And what he obscures is the fact that he's in an editorial, a key editorial position. So his independence as a journalist is of critical importance. And whether or not he's actually a reporter is irrelevant because there are lots of editorial people who are not reporters, who are editors, who are producers, etc., whose independence is crucial for the public broadcaster. I think it's good that they've said he's not being targeted, but I don't think it's enough. What they need to do is call off the SSA and relook at the strange policy that requires journalists to be subjected to scrutiny by the SSA, intrusive scrutiny, unnecessary scrutiny, and what looks, because of the timing, the strange timing 2 years after he joined, as suspiciously like pre-election harassment. They really need to rethink this policy and I think have a look at whether it's really appropriate. It is really inappropriate for SSA to have anything to do with the appointment of journalists at the public broadcaster, and they should back right away from this situation.
You speak about, the timing. There are also, of course, other events, leading up to this particular development. One, not too long ago, that leaked audio recording of the ANC's NEC meeting, where we, of course, were made to believe that the president of the ANC saying that anyone who negatively issues publicity ahead of the polls will then be challenged. The fact that this is, in fact, a very crucial election for the country. I mean, can we link those developments to what we are currently seeing today?
Well, one can't ignore the fact that it happens in that context. It comes 2 years after he joined the SABC and started the job. It comes shortly after this incident where SABC ran audio of the president speaking behind closed doors and upset the presidency. When he was saying that they're going to challenge any media that's too critical of the ANC. It comes in the pre-election period when the independence of the SABC is absolutely of paramount importance to our democracy. So these circumstances make one worry about the possibility of there being ulterior motives. The only way for state security and the presidency to reassure us that they're not going after Mr. Monare or harassing him is to be pulled right away, to back right off and let him get on with his job.
I mean, I don't also want to, make this story seem, as you also say, just adding other issues that may not necessarily be the case here. But when we were listening to what Vincent, was saying in terms of, just speaking on behalf of the president, also mentioning that, of course, this vetting process was also something that the former, GE, Patiswa Magopane, went through. She's now a member of the board. But we do remember what what she was also subjected to after, immediately after the local elections of 2021. And again, it almost kind of goes into, what everyone has always been saying about the SABC, as a public broadcaster, which will always be a contested space and always be criticized.
You're absolutely right. And that's why the presidency should back right off. There is a history here of attempts by the government, by the ANC, to unduly influence and take control and even harass journalists at the SABC. And they really need to be impeccable here in a pre-election period. There shouldn't be security vetting and lie detector tests for any editorial staff at the public broadcaster. The SSA should have nothing to do with the appointment of editorial staff at the public broadcaster. So much worse it is at a time like this.
Of course, the collective press statement that you also, your organization has also made together with others who are concerned about these latest developments speaks of the fact that in the critical infrastructure, in terms of the Critical Infrastructure Act, executives should be subjected to these kinds of vetting processes, but not necessarily where you have to do it to a journalist, like you've earlier alluded to the fact that he is the head of news. But it also would seem, just given the timing, of these news to revet the SABC head of news, that this is not only something that may seemingly be a target to him only, but also to the SABC and the journalists within the public broadcaster at large, given just the crucial time in which these elections need to then be carried out, the role in which the journalists within this establishment also need to carry the work. It would seem that, given these news ahead of this very crucial election, that the work of these journalists would then be, destabilized.
Yes, you point right at the problem. The State Security Agency has repeatedly tried to impose itself on the selection of key editorial staff at the SABC. And it's worth noting that the previous board repelled them. The previous board blocked them and stopped them from doing this. This board needs to take a view as well. I think vetting, security vetting, should be for those people who have access to state secrets. It really does not apply here. It's really an overreach to start including SABC staff in this. SSA, we need to be very careful because we know SSA has a tendency to overreach. We've seen that repeatedly. But we really need to be absolutely scrupulous in preventing any interference in SABC editorial and policy matters. So if the presidency wants to show that it indeed does not approve of the harassment of journalists, they must call the SSA off.
All right. So, Prof, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really do appreciate it. That, of course, is Professor Anton Harber. He is with the Campaign for Free Expressions. Of course, we'll continue with that particular story and also get the view from the head of news a little bit later on.